So here we are working with the past tense, and here's an example of how to convert into past tense a verb that ends on te and soft sign. Te and мягкий знак. Мягкий means soft and знак means sign. So te и мягкий знак. We get rid of te мягкий знак and we replace it with either L or la or lo or li, depending on the gender. First of all, the plurality, and second, the gender. So if it's singular, then the only thing we have to be concerned about is gender after that. And for any of these pronouns, if the subject is male, we add L. If the subject is female, we add la. And if the subject is of middle gender, we add law. So if I'm speaking and I'm a man and I'm speaking about myself and I want to say I did or I was doing, I will say я делал. And if somebody is speaking to a man and they're addressing him informally, they will say ты делал, regardless of whether it is a man speaking or a woman speaking. And of course, if we're talking about somebody in third person, then we will use on, and on is male, so we will say on делал. But if I am a female and I'm speaking about myself, I will say я делала. And if I'm speaking to a female and I'm addressing her informally, I will say ты делала. And finally, она делала. And with now, I guess technically, I could be addressing something that's middle gender, but these cases are so rare that I didn't even bother to think about it. But anyway, the middle gender is делала. And so we'll say оно, if we're talking about it in third person, оно делало. And plurals are all the same. All the same. So it doesn't matter if it's we, you in plural, or they. They're all going to be делали. Делали. Мы делали, вы делали, они делали. So, pretty easy conversion, I think. And let's see how this works out with some of the verbs that we know. So here we have our verbs: хотеть, which means to want, быть, which means to be, говорить, which means to speak or talk, пить, which means to drink, читать, which means to read, and работать, where I got the sign wrong, it should be on the O, работать, which means to work. And when converted into the past tense, according to the order of first we do the male, then we do the female, then we do the middle gender, and then we do the plural. It will sound хотел, хотела, хотела и хотели. Notice these two are sound very much alike because O, when is not under the accent, is often pronounced very similar to a. And that's why these two words are in a live conversation, they'll be pretty much indistinguishable, but they are written differently. Быть, он был, она была, оно было, они были. Notice the accent jumped here. Говорить, он говорил, она говорила, оно говорило, они говорили. Пить, он пил, она пила, the accent jumps again, оно пило, они пили. Читать, он читал, она читала, оно читало, они читали. Работать. Он работал. Она работала. Оно работало. Они работали. Pretty straightforward. Let's look at some other verbs that are less straightforward. We know the verb to eat, which is есть. And here we're going to drop all three of the last letters, but substitute in the same fashion as before. So есть becomes он ел, она ела, оно ело, они ели. Мочь, which means to be able to, он мог, она могла, оно могло. Now these are clearly different because we got the accent on the O, and now it does sound as O. Оно могло, они могли. And this one is really different. Идти, which means to go or to walk in some contexts. Он шел, она шла, оно шло, они шли. So yeah, completely unrelated to the verb. And then we have our reflexive verb. The only one that we know is нравится. And now I have to say, for our formula where we say I liked, she liked, he liked, we will only be using this word, the third gender one. That's because the action driving is not being driven by the pronoun. The action is driven onto the pronoun by the action, and I guess the action takes the middle gender. So when I want to say I liked, I will be saying мне нравилось, and I'll be using this one, мне нравилось. I will not be saying мне нравился. So let's say I liked going home. Мне нравилось идти домой. I will not be saying мне нравился идти домой. That's grammatically incorrect. And let's also talk about our formula. How would we say needed to? By the way, I want to say Andrei was right in class when he said that нужно было sounds more natural than было нужно. I don't know why in that moment I went into было нужно, but after some reflection, I agree with him. So нужно было is the more common way of saying it, and that's the way we should be saying it. So let's say I want to say I needed to. I will say мне нужно было. Let's say I want to say I needed to go home. Мне нужно было идти домой. And I also want to remind you that wherever there's нужно, надо is always nearby and can be substituted. And in most cases, they are pretty much interchangeable. Now, I like the philosophy of not basically when we are at the very basic level, we want to be able to learn how to say things in just one way and move on instead of focusing on several things to say them. Because I'd rather cover wider breadth first and then go into depth. And so so I'll be mostly focusing on нужно, but I just want you to know that nada is also used very common, and it's in almost all cases interchangeable with нужно. So I could also say мне надо было идти домой. All right, and now let's do the practice. And the practice is a very important part of the class. In fact, this part of the videos is, I would say, equally important as the classroom. Because this is where you get to practice on your own time as much as you want, as much as you need. And as I was saying, the difference between the people who do these videos right and who don't do them becomes apparent. after 3 or 4 weeks. And um, if you practice the way that I was practicing, and it worked for me, and so I'm incorporating this way in this class. If you'll be practicing this way, then you will find it'll be much easier for you to overcome uh, like the psychological barrier of like speaking Russian out loud. To the advanced guys, this probably not an issue, but if you're at the beginner level, you probably still have that maybe a little bit hesitation, and this is there to help you overcome that, to constantly get used to hearing yourself speak Russian. So the way to do this is to first listen to the sentence in English, then construct that sentence into Russian, and then this is the most important part, to pronounce it out loud. Pause the video if you need to. Take as much time as you need. No need to rush, but there's definitely the need to pronounce it out loud. Whispering is not enough. Thinking it in your head is not enough. Lip syncing it is not enough. You actually have to say it like you are saying it to people around you. Of course, it's better to do it in some private space, but but I'll leave it up to you. But I really do believe in this approach. It helped me a lot when I was studying Spanish, and that's why I'm incorporating into this class. So here we go. Okay. So what did you want? And we are addressing a male, and we are addressing him informally. Что ты хотел? Before we go here, this is where and changes into a. Um, I haven't come up with the way to teach this yet, but for now, but I will be introducing a into the union word a into our practices. And in this case, it would be no more natural to use it instead of and. So if you recall, we already know that e in Russian is and we know that no is but a sometimes is e and sometimes is but. In English has no equivalent for that union word. So I'm telling you that in this case you should use a instead of instead of and. I wanted to eat. This is spoken by male. And what did you want? He asks informally a female. I wanted to drink, replies the female. Я хотел есть. А что ты хотела? Я хотела пить. One more time. Я хотел есть. А что ты хотела? Я хотела пить. When did they play? Or, I meant this to be or when were they playing? Reminding you that pretty much every verb in Russian is either a completed action or a continuous action. And the verb играть is a continuous action verb. So it would be correct to use it when we hear when did they play or when were they playing. Когда они играли. Before we do this one, when we talk about the past, we will often be using the word nazad. Nazad. Now, zad, the root zad means back or rear. And nazad is onto the back or onto the rear. But into English, it's translated as ago. And just like in English, it'll follow some period of time. So in this case, 2 hours is dva часа. And therefore 2 hours ago is два часа назад. My brother and his friend played 2 hours ago. Мой брат и его друг играли 2 часа назад. Мой брат и его друг играли 2 часа назад. The word for chess in Russian is шахматы. Шахматы. And also, let me remind you that when we play in a sport or in an activity, or play a sport or activity in Russian, we play in that sport or that activity. In English, we play football. In Russian, we play in football. And the preposition for in is v. Did you play chess with him? We are asking a female informally. And she replies, yes, I played chess with him yesterday. Ты играла в шахматы с ним? Да, я играла в шахматы с ним вчера. Did he play well? No, not very. Он играл хорошо? Нет, не очень. We're asking someone formally. Where were you? Где вы были? Female replies, I was at work. And in Russian, if we were to translate this literally, it would be we are on work. На работе. На работе is at work. I was at work. Я была на работе. Была, because it's a female. Now, who in Russian is кто? But if we are saying with whom, we're not going to say с кто. We will have to agree this question word to instrumental case, and it becomes кем. So with whom becomes с кем. С кем. And very often when we talk about the past, we talk about things that just happened just a moment ago or just recently. And the word for just is actually a combination of words, and it is только что. Только что. On their own, the word только means only. And the word что in the most common way is what. So literally, it's like we're saying only what, but um, that's not how we should perceive them. When you see только что together, we should perceive them as just, just as in the context of time. So knowing all that, how would you say, with whom did she just speak? С кем она только что говорила? С кем она только что говорила? Now, here's another way to introduce a. A has this effect like, and what about? Um, that's one of the ways in which we use it. Um, Now, we could also say "ishto," but "ashto" sounds more natural. So, in this case, we will replace this entire second sentence with "ashto." It's a very short and way to say it, and it has the same meaning. She spoke with me, and what about it? Она говорила со мной. А что? We are asking a male informally. Do you want to eat? No, I was just eating. Ты хочешь есть? Нет, я только что ел. About the word alone. Alone for male is the same as the number one, which is один. With whom did your son work yesterday? He worked alone. С кем твой сын работал вчера? Он работал один. All right, this is a bigger one. Maybe I should not have fit it all on the screen, but you guys can do it. Yesterday, we walked home for 2 hours. And by the way, in Russian, now in English we say for 2 hours, but in Russian we will just say 2 hours without using any word for four. Yesterday, we walked home for 2 hours. And what about your brother? I don't know. He wasn't walking with us. Вчера мы шли домой 2 часа. А твой брат? Я не знаю. Он не шел с нами. Вчера мы шли домой 2 часа. А твой брат? Не знаю. Я не знаю. Он не шел с нами. And now here's an example where we can use "a" instead of "but". I think you know. Do you know how to say why? If you don't, it's почему. Почему. And because is потому что. Потому что. If we say it fast, like I would say in a normal conversation, it sounds потому что. Потому что. But why? He couldn't go because he needed to work. А почему? Он не мог идти, потому что ему нужно было работать. А почему? Он не мог идти, потому что ему нужно было работать. In a live conversation, it will sound like this. А почему? Он не мог идти, потому что ему нужно было работать. What was he reading? Or what did he read? Что он читал? Textbook is учебник. Учебник. He was reading a textbook the whole day. And I hope you remember what the whole day is. We went over it in class. If you don't, it's целый день. Целый день. Он читал учебник целый день. All right, that's the last one. Let's hope this video works.